Ciao everyone, this is Nate on the Stone. Welcome back to my channel, and welcome also to the third episode of the Streaming Stone, which are a little different from the usual videos that I upload every Tuesday. You're not really going to see too many clips or cuts in these videos. I try to keep them more of a stream of consciousness where I give my 1-2 opinion about stories that are recently in the news or that I've caught my eye, and that I really want to give kind of my first thought opinion about things that still deal with the culture, politics, and religion from a different POV, because of course that's what we're all about here on the Stone. And the first thing that I wanted to talk about is the juiciest story, and that is I was an eyewitness to Michael Knowles getting attacked on the campus of the University of Missouri in Kansas City. On Thursday, April 11th, I'm sure you've already heard by now, Knowles was on the campus of UMKC giving a speech about why men aren't women. Completely uncontroversial talk and opinion, or at least it would have been 5 years ago, which is a point he made. And during the first half of his talk, there were the usual suspects, the ideologues, the trans activists, the LGBTQIA2 plus activists who were, trying to drown him out, trying to catcall him, the usual stuff, nothing to write home about. But at about the halfway point of his speech, they all got up and started walking out of the room, making as much noise, being as disturbing as possible, like they're wont to do. But then what elevated this to the unusual, or to the noteworthy, I should say, is that a student wearing a mask and with a soaker gun actually ran up to the podium and tried to assault Michael Knowles, an unarmed man who was just giving a talk by the invitation of a student-organized body, the Young Americans for Freedom chapter of UMKC. Well, thank goodness the police were there. They took him down. They arrested him. He's going to be charged. But like I said on my Instagram story right after coming out of the talk, it was a wild and woolly ride. And I stand by that because it was almost surreal seeing a masked man in a soaker gun try to attack Michael Knowles. And in fact, just so that you guys know that, I wasn't, I'm not pulling your leg or anything, just to kind of give you an idea of what it was like, here is a clip. See, I'm breaking my rules already. Here's a clip. Crazy, right? But this story, it showed me something more than just what Michael Knowles tweeted about. He said that, if you don't partake, if you don't embrace the leftist ideology on campuses today, then you will be shouted down, you will be made a pariah, and now you will be physically attacked. All of those things are true. What it showed me is that we really are in the dawn of the age of superstition. I've made that comment a couple of times before here on my channel, and particularly in my videos about the transgender ideology. What I saw Thursday night is proof positive that we've already started that. And not just because of these people were unable to actually engage with Michael on anything of substance, on anything that he was actually saying. It was what really drove this point home for me was After this student, I think his name was released earlier today, Greg Darbu, I think his name is. After he was taken down, after the police were arresting him, some of the other ideologues in the room, they started the hands up, don't shoot line. Now, hands up, don't shoot was a lie started after Michael Brown was shot by an officer in Ferguson, Missouri. That was back in 2014. And, the story was that Michael Brown was this peaceful giant. He was just a good-natured kid. And when the officer told him, to stop, to come forward, Michael Brown had his hands up and was coming peacefully. And the officer, a white officer, still drew his gun and shot him. That was the story. It was a pack of lies. It's been proven several times to have been a pack of lies. But even if that story hadn't been a lie in Ferguson for Michael Brown back in 2014, how does this hands up, don't shoot narrative fit these circumstances, right? Michael Knowles wasn't telling this kid, this student, to stop and to come forward peacefully with his hands up. This kid didn't have his hands up and was coming forward peacefully. And then, Knowles assaulted him. It was the exact opposite. Michael Knowles was the unarmed man. He was the one who had been invited to campus. He was the one who was assaulted by a guy wearing a mask and with a soaker gun. And just a thing about the soaker gun. A lot of people, I think, thought, I certainly did, that he had filled it up with bleach. Because when the officers were arresting him, the smell of bleach, or what smelled like bleach, was very heavy in the air. Now, Knowles tweeted later Thursday night, I think about 11 p.m. Central Time, that the police officers, or the police told him that it wasn't bleach. And I think later they said that it was lavender oil and some other household chemicals or supply. So it wasn't bleach, but it smelled like bleach. So even if the Michael Brown, the kid who was shot in Ferguson, Missouri in 2014, even if that story, the hands up, don't shoot, was true for him, how is it true for this guy when the man who was arrested wasn't unarmed, wasn't doing anything peaceable? He was the one wearing the mask with the soaker gun, trying to assault an unarmed man. I'll get that word out here eventually. So it drove home to me that if these people think that lie from Ferguson, Missouri is applicable here, then we are in the age of superstition, because them shouting that slogan, hands up, don't shoot, hands up, don't shoot, is supposed to be spellbinding. It's supposed to all of a sudden weave the narrative, because what these kids are going to say is that this student was perfectly justified. He's not the one who did anything violent. Remember, Michael Knowles and his hateful rhetoric that men can't be women, he was the violent one. He got what was coming to him, right? This other kid, he's going to be a hero. I mean, from the ideological standpoint. But it drove into my mind that, yeah, these people are ideologues. They are magical thinkers. They do think that reality basically bends and warps to whatever they want, which is a very disturbing, very scary thing. That was the first thing. The second thing is that I'm going to get in trouble when I say this, but there's no other way of actually saying it. If you're a domestic terrorist, or if you're someone who is going to assault someone because their speech is violent, I have more respect for you if you actually have the courage of your convictions. When Knowles tweeted Thursday night that the substance in the soaker gun wasn't bleach, it was just something else, someone commented on that tweet, or I think even Knowles responded to that same tweet, saying that because it wasn't bleach, they probably weren't going to charge this student with a felony. And that was really interesting to my mind, because the narrative that is being told on the left is that speech is violence. If you engage in speech that contradicts the leftist ideology, you're not engaging in free speech. You're actually engaging in violence. Your words are not just mean and hateful, but they actually cause people physical, emotional, and mental pain, right? It's the equivalent of me taking a baseball bat and beating someone over the head with it. There's no difference between hateful speech and beating someone with a baseball bat. Now, if you believe that, and if you also believe that Michael Knowles, because of that, is this, he's the equivalent of a Nazi and a racist, why wouldn't you fill your soaker gun with bleach? Are you really scared of a felony charge? That's the line that you're going to draw with your, being an ally of a minority group? And before anyone starts saying anything, before YouTube takes down this video or anything, let me just say, first and foremost, that I am not advocating for anyone to be a domestic terrorist. I am not advocating that people, assault people with bleach loaded in soaker guns. Far from it. The point I'm trying to make is that if you honestly believe that speech is violence, if you honestly believe in the leftist ideology, therefore, you honestly and truly believe that people like Michael Knowles and Ben Shapiro, and to a very, very, very small scale right now, myself, yours truly, if we are the equivalent of Nazis and racists of the Jim Crow South, then why don't you actually have the courage of your convictions? Why are you afraid of going to jail? Why do you calculate your attacks so that if you do go to jail, it won't be on a felony charge? Why not? I would have had more respect for this man if he had actually gone the whole way. That sounds horrible, which is why I'm going to stop talking about it, but just food for thought. The second story that has been in the news is the back and forth, backlash, re-backlash, I guess we could say, between Ilhan Omar and the general right. Congresswoman Ilhan Omar gave a speech at CARE, which is the Islamic organization here in the United States. And during her speech, she actually described 9/11, the terrorist attacks of 9/11, as something that some people did. This, rightfully, I would say, threw the right into an outrage. It shouldn't have just been the right that was thrown into an outrage, okay? It should have been any decent, honorable, honest American man or woman should have been outraged by that statement, because here's the thing: when 9/11 happened, when those terrorists flew those commercial airliners into the World Trade Center, almost 3,000 people died and another 6,000 people were wounded. Okay, that is an attack. It is still God forbid, it will remain the biggest terrorist attack on American soil. And I say that because for it not to be the biggest terrorist attack on American soil, that means there would have to be another attack that was even bigger and more devastating. And God forbid that that'll ever happen anywhere in the world. But that is a terrorist attack, okay? That is not somebody doing something. Somebody doing something, everybody does something, even if it's the most mundane, trivial, thing in the world. You're still doing something. Waking up is doing something. Brushing your teeth, making your bed, commuting to work, commuting back home from work. That's doing something. To equate the biggest terrorist attack on American soil with something, brushing your teeth, commuting to and from work, that is an insult. That's an insult to all the people definitely who lost family and friends on that day. And it's an insult to really all of us who went through that day. Because even if you didn't lose anyone on that day, it was still an attack on the country. And so in a sense, in a broader term, it was an attack on all of us. Everyone who says that they're Americans, everyone who is a friend of America, it was an attack on everyone. So in a much broader sense. Now, many people, like I said, were pushing back against this. The New York Post actually had on their front page a photograph from 9/11, and it was of the explosions in the towers, of the planes flying into the towers. And they said something to the equivalent of, yeah, some people doing something. Representative Dan Crenshaw of Texas said that it was the first time that, a sitting member of Congress had described 9/11 in this way, which was unbelievable. And I'm not going to break my rule again. I'm not going to play the clip, but the left just started losing their minds. Congresswoman Rashid Tlaib, she is the second Muslim congresswoman, along with Congresswoman Omar. She was on NBC and she took to Twitter saying that the pushback that Omar was getting was outrageous. It was absolutely outrageous because this was just going to encourage more people, to threaten Omar's life. It was going to, raise more hatred against Muslims here in America. The New York Post was just trying to score political brownie points. And then on NBC, when she was being interviewed about this, she said, let me find it here, quote, "They, the right, take our words out of context," unquote. And by our words, she meant women of color. So you see there, we get the racist aspect too. One of our personal favorite Congresswoman, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, AOC, she on Twitter responded to Crenshaw by saying that Omar has actually done more for 9/11 victims because she co-sponsored the 9/11 Victim Compensation Fund. That was a fund that was started pretty soon after the terrorist attack. It was renewed, I want to say, in 2010, and then it was renewed. It was renewed in 2010, and it will run out in 2021. I believe. But anyway, because Ilhan Omar has co-sponsored the 9/11 Victim Compensation Fund, she's done more for victim families, especially when you understand that, Crenshaw has never co-sponsored this fund. And also the GOP, what did she say? Won't even support health care for first responders, but they are happy to attack Omar's faith. Now, again, ideological thinking 101. This was really, gang, another eye-opening experience. But it proved something else too. How long has it been said or argued that we shouldn't watch the footage from 9/11? It's too soon. It's too painful. It's not going to change anything. All of those things, well, it's painful, absolutely true. It's not going to change anything, absolutely true. We still can't go into the past and prevent it from happening. But the problem is when you don't remind people of something, they tend to forget. That's just human nature, out of sight, out of mind. And so, yeah, we might say, we have, Patriot Day on September 11th, we have 9/11, we have speeches, we have, memorials, we have some movies, but none of that can compare with actually rewatching the attack. Disagree with me in the comments if you want, but I think that on 9/11, on the anniversary of the attack, we should rewatch the footage of the attack, even if it's only 5 minutes, even if it's only 6 minutes. We should watch the planes crash into the towers. We should watch, people who jumped out of the towers because that was preferable to burning alive. We should watch that. Not because we're sadomasochists, not because that's how we, get our jollies or anything, but to remind us that evil exists in this world. There are people who want to kill us. There are people who hate America, who hate the West, and who have sworn eternal, they have sworn to be our eternal enemies. We need to understand that. We need to understand that the world is not safe. It's not a nice place. We need to be reminded of that so that, in whatever manner, shape, or form we're called to serve our country, that we'll be ready, that we understand that, yes, we have real enemies. There are things that are worth fighting for. That's what this really, if people made it a habit to rewatch the footage of the attack and to remind themselves of what happened on that day, then I don't think that Omar could have gotten away with this, because everyone would have risen up against it. It just wouldn't have been a reaction from the right as to what she said with the left defending her. I think, again, like I said, every honest, decent human being, whether you're on the right or the left, doesn't matter, would have condemned that and said that that is not good. But that's my initial thought on that. So yeah, those are some of my thoughts about some stories that have recently been in the news. So thank you for watching. Thank you for giving me a little bit of your day, as always. I will see you all again, gang, on Tuesday for our regularly uploaded video. And until then, take care. Ciao.